Christmas is supposed to be a time of friendship, giving, and happiness. But in the following tragic legend, it turns out to be quite the opposite.
On most occasions, Christmas is a time when families get together to enjoy the season, exchange gifts, and spread plenty of good cheer. But this year, Dad has been called away on business, and his Scrooge of a boss is making him leave on Christmas Eve. He gives his daughter a big goodnight hug and reminds her to leave out some cookies and milk for Santa. Then he bids his wife a heartfelt goodbye and promises he'll call as soon as he arrives at his hotel.
Bye-bye.
Once Dad is gone and Santa's cookies and milk are all set out, Mom says it's bedtime. And off they go to dream about sugar plums. Christmas Day dawns, and Mom and daughter are busily opening their gifts. The little girl finds a doll given to her by her daddy.
I miss Daddy.
I do too.
Mom decides to brighten up the moment by firing up a nice Yule log. But once she gets the fire started, something goes wrong. The smoke kicks back into the room. She quickly puts out the flames before the air is completely unbreathable. Then, once the hearth is cooled, she reaches up into the flue to see if it's clogged. And sure enough, something is blocking it up. A shiny black boot. Could this be some kind of a joke? She grabs a flashlight and reaches further up into the depths of the chimney. And she feels a large wad of cloth. Grabbing hard, she yanks it down with all her might. And to her shock, out tumbles Santa Claus in the flesh. Upon closer inspection, Mom realizes that the man is dead. And when she pulls back the beard, she discovers it's her husband. His neck has been broken. It turns out that the night before, Dad made up his story about an out-of-town trip. In truth, he decided to surprise the family by dressing up as Santa Claus and climbing down the chimney as Old Saint Nick. But while inside the narrow passage, he slipped at an awkward angle and snapped his neck. A Christmas nightmare. But is the story true, or is it just humbug? It's hard to figure out exactly when or where this nightmare before Christmas originated. But we can try. For centuries, fireplaces were the sole source of heat for the home, and in ages past, their chimneys were often big enough to climb deep down inside. But the legend also involves Santa Claus. And while St. Nicholas goes back more than 1,000 years, older stories about him don't involve climbing down chimneys. Santa entering the house through the chimney only dates back to the 19th century, so the legend could still be as old as that. Yet the story of a Santa-suited dad getting stuck has a distinctly modern ring to it. The tale has the contemporary touch of irreverence. Its shock value comes from introducing a tragic death into an almost sacred setting, the family hearth on Christmas Day.
The fireplace is just so symbolic of the gathering place in the home, and it's generally accompanied by a roaring fire, a Christmas tree. And the mantelpiece of a fireplace is usually the center of the room if it's not the tree, where people tend to put everything that's very personal to them.
And the legend's staying power is due to the memorable image of this idyllic occasion being shattered by a horrific accident. But are such accidents possible? These days, fireplaces and chimneys are built more for cosmetic reasons than for home heating. So they may not accommodate Old St. Nick the way they did back when the legend began. Or could they? To find out for sure, we consulted the only guy with a better reason than Santa to climb down a chimney sweep.
Well, our business primarily is safety for the home. But without cleaning, fireplaces can erupt into a dangerous chimney fire. So our profession keeps these things clean. We bring our equipment inside, tarp off the floor, put our coverings down so that anything that falls out, our tools and so forth, could have dirt on them. We don't want that stuff to get onto the carpets. So we protect that whole area. Then we've got special machines. The purpose of this is to accumulate the dust so that there's no dust floating through the house. Then we go up onto the roof. We look down in through to see what kind of a buildup we have. Clean those things down as tight as we can. Clean them up and down until we get just about everything out of it. Then we'll go up inside with the machine and suck out all the debris that we have cleaned that fell in that smoke chamber. So that's all cleaned out right down to the hearth from the top of the chimney.
Notice none of this involves climbing down the shaft. There's a reason why.
Well, the construction of a chimney is not a straight shot. There's actually a bend in the flue, but if it were a straight shot, you would end up into a smoke chamber. And in that smoke chamber, they would have a damper. And when you open the damper, you're really not going to have enough room to get through it.
So the horrific moment of Santa spilling out into the living room can't happen. But what about getting caught inside and never coming out?
If somebody got stuck in the chimney, there's many ways that you could die. First, dehydration, if nobody happens to be coming into the house. Second, if someone lights a fire, if you become unconscious in there, because you are stuck in a very restricted area, so you have asphyxiation. So it's not a pretty sight.
There's also the theory that Dad might die of a broken neck as he fell. But would anyone really face such hazards if they actually tried a chimney on for size? Well, believe it or not, there are in fact characters who have managed to give themselves the shaft. Some of them are thieves. Or in one case, a musician who thought he found a way to slip into his mother-in-law's house to rescue her keys.
I looked down the chimney and figured that I could make it, no problem. So I started sliding down and shoot, no problem, just went right down to the bottom. And when I stuck my foot down to feel where the flue was, I got my foot locked into the flue.
So his mother-in-law called the fire department.
He assumed that because a chimney was wide at the top, that it would be that way all the way down, and that he could easily slide down into the fireplace and retrieve the keys.
It took 45 minutes for the firemen to cut through this brickwork to free him.
He actually said that he had seen it done before, watching Mary Poppins, and seen Dick Van Dyke going up and down a chimney.
In reality, there is no case where an amateur Santa was killed going down the chimney. The good news is that yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. And no, Virginia, there are no dads who died on Christmas Eve from a case of the flu. In this story, tragedy results from an accident. But in our next legend, tragedy is the will of the gods.